Well, hello. Let's talk source control. Very exciting topic. And I mean that. It's very exciting. This is a great topic. It has made our lives as programmers so much easier. So way back in the beginning, as programmers kind of started programming, it was all done kind of in one file, one person writing the code. Now, you could have collaborators help you, but it was that one file that had to be modified. And in our world of technology, as the projects got bigger and bigger and bigger, a big thing for us is something called time to market. How quickly can we get our product out before a competitor gets their product out and steals our idea? We want to go in and capture market share. And so it's actually been a philosophy for a long time in the software world. Get it working pretty good and then send it out, even if there's problems, even if there's bugs. And yeah, we'll update it. We'll fix those problems. And us as consumers, we just are okay with that. It doesn't work quite right. Our program crashes, but they'll have an update at some point that'll fix that. And so you get out, you capture your market share because it's so hard to carve out a share in a market that's already established. And so we want to get our big projects done and out. And in order to do that, we need a lot of people working together to make that happen. And so that's why there were these advents of things like object-oriented programming, where we break the project out into a bunch of different pieces and everybody just works on kind of their siloed piece. It's going to be this little black box that does its thing. And we're going to pass information into that box. We're going to get it, whatever we need out of that box. And we just pass information back and forth, which is why I've been focusing so heavily on that. In this world of team development, we pass information back and forth to make the program do what it needs to do, right? And so we get a lot of people working in teams on projects. Now, when I first was working, in software development, there was no such thing as source control. We just did it ourselves. So you would just have a folder out on the server, your local server somewhere, and then as you made changes to your files, we were still trying to work in an object-oriented way, but as you made changes to your file, you would just copy them over to the server and update whatever file was there. Well, you can see that obviously that is a great potential to be a problem, because what if I take and copy my file over the top of somebody else who had made changes, and we did this on a regular basis, not on purpose, definitely not on purpose, but you would override changes that somebody else had made, and then the program wouldn't work and you'd have to go figure out what the heck happened. And you had to create your own local backups, copy the folder out every once in a while so that you had a running backup. And there were a lot of problems in working in teams that way. Well, then came the advent of this beautiful thing called source control. Now, when I say source control, the idea you're most familiar with is Git and GitHub. That's our most kind of common version of source control. But the idea is that we take this code that we're writing and it gets backed up on a regular basis. And the changes that we make are tracked all throughout that process. And in teams with collaboration, we have a central location. Let's use GitHub as the example, online, that everybody can take and move their changes to in a way that we can kind of see them happening one at a time. And somebody in charge can decide whether they want that change brought in or not. It's a much more organized way of doing things that leads to less errors, is less error prone. Although you'll still get plenty of errors to keep you busy, and it just happens naturally, not on purpose. But I'm going to try and teach you the best way I know how to avoid those errors. Anyway, now we have this beautiful thing. Now let me just show you. So Git, like I said, Git and GitHub are the most common we know. But if I could go out and look at, alternatives to GitHub, competitors of GitHub, and it shows us a whole list here: Bitbucket, Gitea, Track, Gogs, Beanstalk, SourceForge, Apache Allura, GitLab, Gitbucket, CodeGiant, Fabricator, Roadcode, TerraVault, AWS Code Commit, Cloud Service Repositories, and Microsoft has a built-in one for Azure. There are a bunch of different alternatives out there. But the most well-known source control system out there is GitHub, Git and GitHub. And so that's what we'll use for our purposes because it's the most well-known. It's likely what you'll be using, or most of you will be using that out in industry. And if you don't, the concepts apply to all these different software packages, these repositories. The concepts are common between them. So back to this idea of source control. Now we can take our changes that we make and track those changes. We have the ability to roll back if there's an issue. We have the teams can work together and check out repositories and even files depending on the system and work on them, and then we don't get as many conflicts and problems in that process. And so like I say, lots of different options available, but what we're going to look at is Git and GitHub, and they're different. It's not the same thing. Git is for our local machine. It's a repository built into our local machine that we can, never touching the web, keep track of all the changes we're making to the program, the files. We can go in and revert when we need to. If we get conflicts, we can resolve those conflicts just with ourselves as we're working on different files. And so that's Git. Git is local. And then we can take, and any changes we make, we can push those up to GitHub. GitHub is the one that's online in the cloud, right? Up somewhere on a server. And we can push all those changes up so we have a backup and so that we can collaborate with other individuals on these projects we're working on. And so source control has been a beautiful thing. It's been so helpful to us as programmers to provide fixes for all these problems that we were experiencing, but that does not mean it's not without its problems. We do still run into problems. All right, so we have Git that's local, we have GitHub that's online, and like I say, there's many different solutions. We're going to focus on Git and GitHub for our source control as we work on these projects. So that's just kind of a brief introduction to the idea of source control. And in the next video, we're going to actually get in and build a project and see how it works. Spencer, out.